We tell every litigant going into family court, do not discuss with the kids what's going on in court, and don't discuss it with other people in their presence, and don't allow other people to discuss it with the kids.
Welcome to Talking About Kids. I am your host, R. Bradley Snyder, researcher, activist, and author of The 5 Simple Truths of Raising Kids. David Pisarra wants to help fathers navigate their custody and divorce cases to secure more time with their kids. Like several previous Talking About Kids guests, David believes that the processes and systems can be easily biased against fathers, and David wants to help fathers overcome these obstacles. David and I discuss his perspective, his experience as a family law attorney, the do's and don'ts of family law, and Dad's Law School, David's online community that he designed to educate and support fathers. Talking About Kids is sponsored in part by the Arizona Department of Health Services Must Stop Bullying campaign through its Title V Maternal and Child Health Program. For more information, go to muststopbullying.org. If you think the information in this episode might benefit a family you know, please do your part by liking the Talking About Kids podcast and sharing it with your friends and colleagues. And now, the interview.
It's all my partner's fault. We started 27 years ago. Actually, we met over 30 years ago in law school. And then when we decided to open up our firm, I said to him, what do you want to practice? And he said, I want to do family law. And my immediate reaction was, ew, gross. I wanted to do business law. I wanted to go out, be captain of industry, help entrepreneurs become, the next Alex Hormozy, the next Kim Kardashian, whoever. I wanted to build companies. And my job was to go out and find clients. So I would go to the Chamber of Commerce and the Rotary Club, do my little dog and pony show, and nobody wanted to talk to me about my stuff. It was crickets. But the minute I said, oh, my partner does family law, it would be, I would get bum rushed with, can he lower my child support? Can he get me out of this marriage? Can he do something about this alimony I'm paying? And so all of a sudden, he started getting really, really busy. So busy that it spilled into my calendar. And before I knew it, like 6 months later, I had a full calendar of family law, no business clients. And it's like, all right, well, I guess we're a family law firm. and that's how it started. And over the years, we've gone from sort of an open, generic, general services for family law to I got about 5 years in and I was just overworked and stressed out and wanted to refigure it and made a list of clients I liked and clients that were driving me crazy. And it was literally like boys on the left and girls on the right. I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. So we became men's family law, where we're focusing just on men. And that was child support issues, alimony issues, divorce, child custody. And over the last, let's say 17, 18, 20 years, it's really changed because as fewer and fewer people are getting married, that means there's that many fewer divorces. But people are still having children. So I was going into court and I would be arguing for dads in divorce or dads in a paternity case. And I'm seeing these men walking up to the judge just getting destroyed. They just would walk up and say to the judge, I'm a great dad. I want my 50% custody. And they would get nothing because you haven't actually told the judge anything if you say you're a great dad. Nobody ever walks into court and goes, Your Honor, I am pretty much an absolute loser. I'm a horrible role model and I would like my 50% custody. Like, that's just not going to happen. So I would see these good dads who I thought like ostensibly had a lot to offer as a role model, just not know what to tell the judge. And so as a consequence of that, we've decided to focus more on custody, still within the world of men. And that became dadslawschool.com. And dads who can't afford lawyers at, two, three, four, five, eight, $900 an hour
Right.
can't afford dad's law school because it gives them the basic understanding of here's what you need to tell the judge to why you're a great dad. And so with dad's law school, I've got online video courses. We have weekly meetups. We have support group that provide the dads what they need because they're going through probably one of the roughest times of their life when it's going to be isolated, lonely, away from their kids, financially devastated. No one's going to really understand it because mom's off telling them that he's a deadbeat, he's a loser, he's a
Right.
negligent parent, he doesn't know anything about the kids, he was abusive to me, and engaging in all of this character assassination. So a lot of times men lose their friends, they lose their family.
Mm.
A lot of times they become even more isolated than they already were. So
And
now we've got a weekly meetup where guys get together and they share what's going on and they start supporting each other. And then we have a WhatsApp group where guys who are going through things can just quickly get in there and be like, I'm really going
right.
through it today, feel horrible, and get some support. And that's sort of the genesis of dad's law school and how it all came about.
And like as you just pointed out, it's not just Dad's Law School, but you have your Union of Dads, a podcast, and you also have your Dad's Badass Boot Camp. And I want to talk about all of those. But before I do, you just listed some of the things that dads go through when they're going through this divorce and custody process and how they're potentially harmed by it. How do you think the kids are hurt when dads don't know how to navigate the family court process?
The kids are devastated. And I'm going to say something that's very controversial
Mm,
that people don't like to talk about. And they don't want to acknowledge that I'm actually coming from a position of experience and observational truth. The kids are being abused by
mm,
bad moms who keep good dads away from their kids for either revenge reasons
mm.
or ego reasons because they want to be the primary parent because that's their whole self-image is I'm the self-sacrificing do-it-all super mom. Or sometimes it's straight up financial.
Right.
The more time they have, the more child support he's going to pay. And if they can cut the dad out, he still is on the hook for the child support, even if he doesn't get to see his kids. And so, through all of that, what's happening to the kids is they're being told a story by their mom, sometimes directly, sometimes they're just overhearing it.
Mm.
Sometimes it's just mom talking with her best friend or her sister about what a loser, deadbeat, scumbag, negligent dad he is, doesn't love me, doesn't care for the kids, doesn't provide enough. And the kids are hearing it. And in my mind, that's abusive. And in the court's mind, it's abusive. We tell every litigant going into family court, do not discuss with the kids what's going on in court
Right.
and don't discuss it with other people in their presence and don't allow other people to discuss it with the kids. And that is consistently ignored by bad moms.
Right. Yeah. Well, so longtime listeners of Talking About Kids will know that this has come up a few times. We've had 4 different episodes that have dealt with what I would call, a kid-centered divorce and custody approach. But in particular, if there's a listener interested, you can go back and listen to the episode with Sunjata Aya, and he talked about the financial disincentives to allowing fathers regular access to their kids. That was a fascinating episode. And of course, we've also had Corey Best on in a very early episode talking about, fathers' rights and how hard they are to come by. But one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about, because in addition to these organizations and initiatives that you started, on your website, you give away for free the Dad's Playbook for Family Court. And right off the bat in that playbook, you're telling dads a bunch of things they need to be aware of and do right away. And so, what do you think is the very first thing that fathers need to do to protect their relationships with their kids?
Probably the first thing I want dads to do is start documenting the time they're spending with their kids.
Mm,
We call it Dad's Diary. And I say, go to Office Depot or Staples or your stationery store and get one of those desk calendars, the big ones that are like 2 foot by 3 foot. And whenever you have your kids, just on that day, make a note. What did you do?
right.
Went and saw the movies. We went ice skating. We went rollerblading. We went body surfing. We went hunting. We went fishing. Took the kids to the play. And whatever you do, you've got the receipts from, and just staple it to that month.
Right.
Because at some point you're going to need to go into court and you're going to need to support your argument to the judge on why you're a great dad. And one of the ways you do that is, here's all the things I'm doing with my kid. Mom says I'm not engaged. Mom says I'm not playing with the kids. Mom says I'm not spending any time with them. I don't know who their best friends are. I don't know who their teachers are. I don't know what they like to do. I don't know what their foods are. I don't know what their food allergies are. I don't know their
Mm.
shoe size. For some reason, shoe size always comes up. And if you've got that calendar, now when you have to go to court, you can go back and you can reconstruct really quickly, really easily. Here's all the things we did. And here's the proof, Your Honor, because here are the receipts that are now going to get attached to my declaration as an exhibit to show I'm not just making things up.
It was one of the things in looking through your dad's playbook for family court that was actually kind of hard for me to read, to tell you the truth, David, because you lay out, here's some questions to make sure that you're able to answer about your kids.
Mhm.
And of course, as somebody I'm not an attorney, but I am an expert on child and family development. And those questions are things that fathers should know. So the idea that you would be even prompting them to make sure that they know those answers, when we talk about in the healthy child development world, we talk about that need for being present, right? For
Mhm.
being active and involved in the lives of your kids. So when you laid those out, and by the way, I totally understand why you did it, but I'm just letting you know it kind of hurt to read that there might be somebody looking at that going, yeah, I guess I don't know my kids' interests, or I don't know their favorite color, or I don't know their shoe size. So that was a little bit hard for me to swallow there. Are you seeing this idea that, and again, I I know enough about the lack of help for fathers in getting access to their kids through custody and during the divorce process to know what a tremendous problem this is. But in hearing you talking and looking at some of the materials, it seems like there's still this very outdated model of what a family is. So in your practice, are you still seeing people approaching families as if it's a, cisgender mother and father, and the father's always working and it's only the mother who is actively involved in the lives of their children?
So two things. Let me address your pain point there.
Yeah.
Because I think I hear you. Dads should know that stuff. And in my experience, most dads do know a lot about their kids.
Mm,
What they don't know is that they have to tell the judge they know a lot about their kids.
okay. Thank
And,
you.
and that's
Yeah.
the point that I'm trying to drive into the men is you do know this stuff. You need to
Right.
surface it and put it in a document and show to the judge that you know this stuff. Because if you just walk in and are like, I'm a great dad, I love my kids, mom's over here saying he doesn't know anything. And if you don't
Right.
actually confront that, well, the judge is going to be like, I guess he doesn't.
Right.
But if I surface the question beforehand, now you know to go in and be like, Your Honor, I'm a great dad. And I know these 43 things about my kids.
Right.
All of a sudden, you've leveled the playing field. And I think most dads actually can answer a good number of those.
Okay.
And part of the problem is some dads don't.
Hmm.
And by surfacing it, now we're allowing them to like, recognize that they do need to up their game on the one hand. And then there's also the element of how much has just been controlled by mom where dad wasn't participating because he wasn't allowed to.
Mm.
He's going to make the wrong decision. He's not that engaged because he doesn't care. It might be, but it might also be if mom's kind of gatekeeping. Well, how can you then cut him out of the kid's life and then blame him for not being there? That doesn't seem very fair.
So David, when I had Charles Jameson on to talk about again kind of a child-centered divorce and custody process, he stated, I think, fairly clearly that the process itself might make the relationship between the mother and the father adversarial. What's your experience with that? Is it the case that two people that might have started off thinking that they knew what they wanted from a custody agreement, thinking that they might know what they wanted from the divorce, by virtue of the fact that they're now in family court, that they might be pushed to extremes by the court process? Or am I getting that wrong?
No, I think that's a very astute observation that a lot of times the process itself does create the conflict. You've got judges who want to have clear rulings. You've got perhaps lawyers on one or both sides who are trying to earn their keep. You've got child support services involved who's looking to justify their budgets.
Right.
So, as a consequence of that, they're telling mom, like, you have to do this in order to get the child support order. And you might as well get as much as you can. Dad's supposed to pay because he's the higher earner, which comes back to, okay, well, your question was, what am I seeing in terms of like family structure?
Mm-hmm.
Traditional family structure, one person's a breadwinner, one person's a homemaker. Yes, it has historically been men are the breadwinners, women are the homemakers. That still plays out a lot in terms of
Mm-hmm.
the biases, but it's not necessarily what we're seeing when men are coming into court saying, I want my 50% custody. I don't want to have to work 60, 80 hours a week. Since we're no longer a family, why should I have to support her? She
Mm.
should go get a job. Now, if we both have to work 40-hour weeks, then we both have the same availability to be there for our kids. So we're seeing dynamics are changing, mostly because society is changing so radically.
Right.
And family court lags. I mean, the truth of the matter is family court just lags. Our laws lag. The biases of judges lag. They're generally older, more experienced individuals, and so they're not necessarily going to be up on the latest things that are going on socially.
One of the titles of one of the videos in your series, which I believe is part of your dad's law school, is how to guarantee that you will lose in family court.
Yeah.
Tell me about that a little bit, please.
So frequently, what happens is if a man is feeling anger, frustration, loneliness, hurt, depression, that manifests as anger.
Mm.
And frequently, mom comes into court and will say, I'm scared of him. The kids are scared of him. He's abusive. He's yelling all the time at us. And that's the basis for a domestic violence restraining order. That's the basis
Right.
for abuse in today's environment. If you raise your voice, you're abusive, which is, I think, in many ways absurd, but it is the current standard. So when a man comes into court and he's got all of these feelings that he hasn't properly processed and he hasn't really thought through what his arguments are going to be, what his strategy is going to be, and mom or mom's lawyer starts attacking him and saying he's
Mm.
negligent, abusive, doesn't know the kids, that those feelings start coming up, we are attacking him and he manifests anger. Well, the judge is going to see, oh, well, I guess mom's right. Dad actually is angry because I'm seeing it right here. And as soon as that happens, you're lost.
Right.
You're behind the eight ball at that point, and the judge is going to be very hard to now switch their position and look at it and say, like, well, maybe you should be primary parent. So for a man to be successful in family court, they can't show anger. They can show assertiveness. They
Mm.
can show emotion, but it's got to be demonstrated in a way that's going to not be perceived as angry or abusive towards either the mother of their children or the children.
And I know that you do a lot in your work to help fathers kind of normalize these feelings, recognize first of all what they're feeling, so that they can then cope with it or access help either through your services or through their own network. And by the way, again, longtime listeners of Talking About Kids know that you first have to be able to recognize what you're feeling in order to respond to it appropriately. But I do think that it's strange that what I hear as passion for your children or outrage over how you're being portrayed would work against a father in that situation. So
Mm-hmm.
that seems rather tragic.
It
Um,
is, and that's one of the reasons why I wrote Dad's Child Custody Action Plan, my book, because dads need to understand how to present themselves.
hmm,
This is you're very much doing a sales job when you're going into family court, and you have to be able to express yourself in a way that puts you in the best light.
right,
And frequently, on mom's side, being a victim is the best light possible for her,
right,
because if she is the victim, now we've got a villain, and
right,
nobody likes the villain. And so let's take the villain out of the picture. Let's protect the victim and give the victim everything they need to reestablish their life, protect the children, provide for the children. Who's going to be doing all that? Well, the villain.
right. And of course, you're fighting stereotypes, right? You're fighting now, you know, many decades of stereotypes about deadbeat dads
Mm-hmm.
and about absentee fathers, which we're now learning, again, were sometimes created by systems that were kind of designed through. Again, my interpretation of it, to tell you the truth, David, is that these systems weren't set up to be nefarious. They were actually responding to things, to real needs that kids had. But at some point along the way, they kind of ignored the facts, or rather didn't evolve as situations changed. The other thing that you've written about is the three unbreakable rules of child custody. Can you share those?
Sure. The most important thing in my mind for a dad who wants child custody is to have flexibility in his schedule so that he can actually be present. So
Mm-hmm.
that may mean a career change. Proximity to the child, because if you're living too far away from where the child is going to school or the
Yeah.
has been primarily living, that's going to work against you.
Yeah.
I was texting with one of the guys on Instagram in my DMs, and he's like, "I just got a quick question for you." And I'm like, "Sure, what do you got?" He's like,
Hmm.
"I live in Sacramento and she's in Stockton, and our 3 year old, I want to go for 50-50 custody." And I'm like, "How far away is Stockton from Sacramento?" And
That's
it's
pretty
about a
far.
40-45 minute drive.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Dude, you got to move. You've got to get
Yeah.
closer." Because the reality is, judges don't want a kid sitting in traffic for 45 minutes to see their parent.
Right.
You've got to be closer. And the last one really is persistence.
Yeah.
These are battles that take months, sometimes years to balance out. My friend Ryan um, fought for a very long time to get custody of his child. And it started off with a domestic violence restraining order when he was suddenly abusive. He and mom had been living together, but all of a sudden he's an abuser and gets supervised visitation. And we work through that. And then it's like, okay, well, now you get one Saturday a month. And then that goes up to every other Saturday. And then it goes up to Saturday and Sunday. And now his daughter is, I think, 10. They're now at essentially a 50-50 custody timeshare. But it
Hmm.
took him many years to get that, because once those restraining orders are put in place, once you're perceived as the
Right.
abuser, which is very easy to happen. By the way, it's extremely
Right.
simple. Um, it's an unbelievable albatross on somebody who's trying to establish a relationship because they're so powerful.
We are talking about kids as the podcast. And so I want to go back to the kids. And I believe that in most cases, more access to both parents is going to benefit all kids or the kids involved. What do you tell fathers who are going through your process about how to talk to their kids when they have a restraining order that they're fighting, when they are, trying to demonstrate that things that are being said about them by the mother in courts don't match the facts? What are you telling dads about how to talk to their kids about these things?
Obviously, I can't counsel somebody to go against a court order.
Right.
So, what I then say is you can talk to your kids about what the truth is in an age appropriate way, that they should be looking to their own observations. They should be looking to their own experiences and making those judgments because that's the long-term skill that they need going forward into life is to trust their own instincts. They need to
Mm.
be able to trust their own observations. You know, what's that song from the 70s of the cheater? Are you going to believe me or your lying eyes? Like that's
Right.
not a good thing to be teaching kids.
Mm.
Kids need to be learning how to discern the truth. And so, yeah, one parent may be telling them that you're this horrible person, but son, you need to look at what have I actually treated you like? What is your
Right.
actual experience of me? Because you need to be able to judge people on who they really are, not on what somebody else says about them.
This might speak to my naivete, and I apologize if it does, but does how a parent interacts with their kid about the custody, does that ever get used as evidence in the custody hearings?
Oh, all the time,
Okay.
all the time. Frequently, it will be used against somebody because there'll be false allegations made.
Mm.
I say under penalty of perjury is the biggest joke in family court.
Hmm.
It means nothing in reality. Most judges are looking at the litigants and they think to some degree they're both lying. They're both shading their own view of reality.
Right.
Um, and so, as a consequence of that, one party will say, well, they're talking to the kids about everything and they're letting them know and they
Mm.
shouldn't be. And you shouldn't let them near the kids, Your Honor, because of that. And what we also frequently say is every accusation is an admission. Whatever you're being accused of is probably what the other side is doing.
Right.
And that's a hard thing because the other thing to remember is this, you know, in the grand scheme of family law, there's probably 70 to 80% of it is handled with one hearing, maybe two. And the parties come to a semi reasonable, probably overly leveraged on one part, but they come to an agreement that they can live with.
Right.
The laws are written primarily by the outliers, the top 5% of crazy. Well, that's probably driven by either a narcissistic personality disorder or a borderline personality disorder who's keeping somebody in court month after month after month with bogus hearing and false allegations and craziness and they're doing this and that's where so much of this stuff gets created and it shouldn't be. The outliers should have their own set of rules in my mind because the vast bulk of humanity going into family court, they figure it out.
Right.
What we're really talking about is just the outliers.
David, I posed this question to you in advance because I wanted you to think about it. But how do you know that your approach is working?
There's two ways. One, I know that it's working because I'm seeing dads who are getting not necessarily the full result they want, but they're
Mm-hmm.
going in the right path. They're going from every other weekend to a 2-2-5 schedule with their kids. So I've seen that happen. I've seen where judges are now starting to represent and respect dads better going into court. So I know that as we do more, as we educate judges more, as more men show up with properly drafted declarations that explain to the judge why they're good dads, we're starting to change the judge's biases. And so that's one way I know it's working. And the other is I work with men one-on-one, sometimes in our group coaching, sometimes in the WhatsApp, where they're going from, I want to self-delete myself. And they go from that to, I'm showing up in court and I didn't get everything I wanted, but I got an extra day this month. And then next month we're stepping it up. We're going to get an extra 2 days. And I'm glad I didn't do that.
Yeah.
So I see it both on the systemic level of how judges are changing. They're becoming more open to it. It's slow, but they're getting there. We're seeing legislation across the country starting to happen. And I'm seeing it in actual real time with the men that I work with, who go from just devastated, ready to just take themselves out of the picture, to staying in the fight and being there for their kids to grow up and be there.
This might be an unfair question given kind of the timeline that something like this might take. But have you ever had a dad that you've worked with come back to you and say, David, you're not going to believe this, but my ex just thanked me for fighting so hard and for staying involved in the life of our kids?
26 and a half years of fighting in family court, and I have never once had that experience.
Okay. I'm holding out hope that you will, because they should, because it's better for the kids if both parents stay involved. And I'm going to leave with that hope for you, David. So thank you for looking out for dads. Thank you for making sure that kids have the best opportunity to have both parents actively involved and present in their lives. And thank you so much for being a guest on Talking About Kids.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it. Have a great day.
That was David Pisarra. More information about David and Dad's Law School is at talkingaboutkids.com. The Talking About Kids theme song is by the Senators. For more of their music, go to thesenatorsmusic.com. And remember, kids are young goats and young humans, and the difference is that young goats are easier to manage.